Hello and welcome to Crushing Comics. This is the comics review show for the Comic Crush. I am Count Chocula. With me is Van Helsing, otherwise known by our grown-up names of Paul and Liz. Liz, how are you?
Very well, very well.
It's another fine week in comics.
Another fine week in comics.
It is
That's
another
right.
fine week in comics. Welcome to everyone watching on YouTube and to everyone who's listening on the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in again. Liz, how have you been? How is life treating you?
Really nice. Yeah. I mean, busy week at the shop. Lots to do. Lots to talk about. It is like a massive week in terms of books.
It is.
And in terms of like books that I was excited for. One in particular, we'll obviously get to,
which
that.
we will get to. Yeah, we have got a lot to work through tonight. A lot of things happening in and around comics and TV and stuff as well that we're going to mention. But we'll speed through as quickly as possible. Before we do, I just want to say hello to a couple of people. First of all, Wayne Gimbird for signing up to the subscription, the YouTube subscription. Thank you for that, Wayne. I hope you're doing well. I know Wayne sort of. Like what Wayne was a customer of Orbital when we worked there. So we have probably met him at one time or another.
Of course we have. Of course we have. We've met like every week, like a bazillion times, Paul.
Yeah. No, different Wayne. I think you're thinking of a different Wayne.
No, I know Wayne.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this after. I think you're thinking of a different Wayne. But I can't quite place Wayne, but I think it's just because I don't necessarily recognise him from his photos, just because I have terrible eyesight, as you can tell, which is why and I have a really hard time acquainting people's photographs with who they actually are in real life.
Right.
It's terrible.
Well, you definitely know Wayne.
I probably do, actually. Yeah. I mean, I think if he is who I think he is, he did used to come in quite a lot. And sorry, Wayne, I'm not being funny, but I talk to Wayne quite a lot in the online world, just because Wayne has a really great comics page where he sells comics on Facebook, and you should definitely check it out because he does really good stuff at really cheap prices. And it's always worth checking out. In fact, I just brought 2 comics from Wayne that arrived the other day. So thank you, Wayne. They got here safely. Thank you, as always, for your great kind of comics. So I'm just fixing my chair there before I disappear from view. Something that Liz is always hoping will happen. So, yeah, hello to Wayne. Hello. I bumped into the other Wayne the other day. Wayne who loves movies. I can't remember his last name.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I bumped into him a couple of weeks back. It was really good to see him. So that was fun. I also want to say a quick hello to Brian Bullen and his wife, Helen. Brian has a page called SKC Reviews, where he does little kind of, well, actually, they're not that small. He does these sort of fairly lengthy reviews of the comics he's reading. And he's someone who has contributed to the Comic Crush. You can catch his writing on King of Spies on the Comic Crush now. I will try and link out to that in the description. And we were just chatting about him doing a bit more writing for the Comic Crush, which, you know, Brian, I'm very grateful for you doing that. Thank you. So he's going to write about hopefully Step by Bloody Step, which we reviewed a couple of weeks back, but he's going to come on and do a little thing about that. But you should check out his reviews because they're good, kind of honest, solid reviews. And he's someone who's kind of started out with Marvel and DC, but gradually he kind of stopped with comics for a while. And then when he came back, he moved into indie comics. I don't know if he just doesn't read the big 2 now. I think he does, but just not as much. And he does things like AWA, Aftershock, Image. That sort of is the sort of stuff he goes for. So that page, SKC Reviews, well worth checking out. So hello to all, and Helen is his wife, who also does little reviews for him as well on his page, and they're really good. So do check all those pages out. They're all Facebook pages. So if you're a Facebook user, give that a go and just kind of, pop in and say hello to those guys. Wayne can always be found at the Comic Marts, I believe, on the Sundays that they're on. His comics are always worth checking out because you find some real gems, stuff you've missed. I keep finding little bits that I'm kind of missed, but you have to be quick on Wayne's page because they're claim sales. So you have to kind of go, I want that as quickly as possible. So Liz, this week we're going to review The Punisher, #1. We're going to review Little Monsters. We're going to review Captain Carter, and we're going to try, if we've got time, to squeeze in Hit Me. I haven't done the images this week. I'm really sorry. So there's Little Monsters. That's the
Lemire cover, yeah.
B cover. Yeah, the Lemire cover. That is The Punisher, which is just the cover A. There's Captain Carter, which is just the cover A. And there's Hit Me, which is also the cover A. All good comics this week. Interesting stuff. What would you like to start with, Liz?
I think that we should start with, how about Little Monsters?
Yeah, I'm down with that. So this is Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nyan reteaming after Descender and Ascender. I don't know if they did anything together in between those two.
Sure.
Do you?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. So,
yeah, I mean, but certainly a team to watch, and certainly a team to. I don't know why I went off screen there. Sorry, just bouncing back and forth. It calms me down. What can I say? So certainly a team that people love. Lemire is kind of the most prolific guy in comics right now, I think, in between the work that he's doing, that he's writing, and the work that he's kind of drawing as well, and the work that he's kind of writing for other people. I mean, just a staggering amount of comics are coming out of his mind right now. Are you reading much of his stuff at the moment, Liz?
I dip in and out of things that he
Right.
writes. I do think he's very good, and he's got a lot of interesting, diverse, things going on. He does a lot of work for Image, but then he does Big 2 stuff as well. I think mostly with Marvel.
Yeah.
And I feel like he just is a super prolific guy. I can't even keep track of half of what he's doing at a given time because there's always a couple of things. Yeah, so many irons in the fire.
Well, he is gradually moving away from Big 2 work. I think he's got the new Image deal, which kind of goes into effect this year, which is an exclusive deal.
Right. Okay.
But I'm told won't affect the things he has going at the Big 2 that have got to finish off. So he's doing a Swamp Thing story called Green Hell at the moment for DC's Black Label. I don't know if we're going to get the proposed sequel. There was supposedly going to be a sequel to Joker Killer Smile, as I understand. I could be wrong. Jeff, if you're watching this, because I'm sure you watch the show every week, if you want to drop us a comment, please tell us. If anyone wants to drop us a comment, if anyone wants to drop us a comment, please do and let us know kind of what's going on there. But yeah, there was apparently supposed to be a sequel to that, which I don't know is going to happen. But I don't think his Image deal was kind of interfered with his Big 2 work. I think he was kind of waiting for that stuff to sort of slowly wind down. He's one of these guys that's moved over to Substack, which is still something that I'd like to write a big kind of piece on. I'm just struggling to find the time at the moment to do that because I think it represents a very interesting change in the industry. And it's coming along at a time when there is a lot of turmoil, with the trouble we've had with Comixology in the last sort of few months. I don't know if you've been keeping track on that.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I don't, and this is not a knock on Comixology, but I don't really use them that much because they're working in comic shops. I read physical copies.
Yeah. I prefer physicals over digital, but I have read digital and
I have too. I'm not, I'm not saying I never do, but it's not affected me the way that it has a lot of people whose entire collections are digital,
Yeah, sure. I always think there's something about it though. For me, I always feel like I haven't quite read the comic. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a weird thing. Even though I have, you know, it always feels like, oh, if I really read it, you know what I mean? I know it's
I
stupid.
mean,
I know it's entirely
it's
stupid in today's world.
right. No, I don't feel that way, but I do feel like, I like to have the physical copy. I like to read the physical copy. That's just what
Right.
I'm used to. But, if you got to read digitally, like, for the sake of convenience, space, whatever your reason is,
Mm.
I think that's a perfectly fine way to do it. But I do, have, I would say, very, very little need to read digitally.
Absolutely. Same here. I've got far too many comics. I own far too many. As I was discovering today, I had a bit of a sort out the shelves behind me and dragged a few things out from hiding. And I just, it's the never-ending cycle. But anyway, one I'll definitely be adding to the collection, I imagine, is Little Monsters. So this is kind of a post-apocalyptic Lost Boys, or Lord of the Flies, maybe. I mean, going in, I mean, I love vampire fiction. We were talking about this on the phone a few weeks back. We're both kind of big fans and advocates for vampire fiction. I think I never get bored of it,
Right.
Like, and there's plenty of bad vampire stories out there, I'm sure.
Oh, sure, but there's so many good ones too.
There are so many good ones.
Right.
And this is a kind of futuristic vampire tale, but it's not the same. There was a book called Bleed Them Dry a few, like about 6 months, maybe a year ago, that dealt with vampires in the future, where vampires have been kind of integrated into society. This isn't that. So here we have a kind of wasteland world where you can see the remnants of civilization still very much in effect, but you are kind of shorn of people, really, except these children. And at the beginning, it does say, there's a caption that says, these are the children, which is an interesting phrase because it obviously indicates the presence of adults or the parents, but we don't see any, and that's something that becomes key as the book goes on. What I loved about this was the children living in this kind of colorless world. So the book is entirely black and white, apart from these odd splashes of color. And they're not done in that kind of Paul Pope way where you have the big kind of shades and palettes. They're just done in these tiny little moments of, they play this constant game of capture the flag, which they seem to play every day. And the flag is this tiny little red handkerchief. And there's a bit of color there. And then you see one child drawing in crayons, and the crayons are colored, but nothing else is. The rest of the book is black and white. It's drained of blood. It's drained of life, as their lives seem to be, because they're kind of bored. They play the same games, they write the same songs, so much so that they can't even remember what songs they've written or sung, or and there's this interesting thing there for me. Sorry, Liz, I'll get I will ask you what you thought of the book in a second.
Right.
I just want to kind of get this out there.
Yeah.
There is an interesting kind of parallel for me for the pandemic there, in the sense that we all became kind of ageless, and the days blended, time moved on but didn't. In some cases we reverted back to childish ways, and I think Nyan really kind of hits that colorless world beautifully. because although the book is black and white, it doesn't appear to be in black and white. Like, you keep expecting color to suddenly intrude in, for life to intrude in, but it doesn't. And for a book about children, ostensibly about children, there is this lack of energy. And what it drops you into, you know, I wrote in my notes here, it drops you straight into the inaction, which is nothing is happening, and nothing has been happening for a very long time. And, you know, there is this creeping sense of restlessness, of boredom. And I think that's a good parallel for the lives that we all lived during the pandemic, but also for these characters. It's interesting because there's a point where I think we all go through as people growing up when we're kids, where we feel a massive sense of restlessness, where there is a next stage to be gone to, whether that's puberty or whatever, or moving into like having relationships and things like that. There is always that sense of what is the next stage? Why isn't it here yet? Why aren't I living it? Why aren't I doing this? And for these guys, they've had to live in that stasis for a very long time. Yeah. So, you know, Nyan's work on this is gorgeous. Like, he's a fantastic artist. And I think actually stripping the color out allows you to really get into the kind of lines and, you know, it's really great. And Lemare's writing is just spot on. It's actually very sparse as a book. Like, it's very stripped back. Dialogue, caption wise, it's all kind of stripped back. And the whole thing just feels like at any minute it's teetering on the edge of, you know, almost Lord of the Flies territory, where the kids are going to separate. There's like 8 kids, right?
Thereabouts,
yeah.
And there is like this feeling of unrest between them.
Sure.
You know, which is understandable because, you know, as you say, they've basically been living the same day over and over again for over 100 years, longer than they can remember their lives before, you know, whatever event took place that, you know, turned the world into this, you know, barren wasteland, you know.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you think, given their nature, given the fact that they live on blood, and we only see them eating rats in this book, but there are no people around, so that would explain that. Do you think it's possible that they caused the apocalypse? That they might have hunted humans to
the point of extinction?
Not just themselves, like that little group,
but vampires in general.
Yeah.
That's possible. It hasn't been made clear yet. No. It hasn't been made clear why it's only children who seem to have, you know, kind of survived, and just a few of them. You know, there are a lot of questions this leaves you with, but a lot of interesting, you know, things to speculate about. You know, I like that it hasn't offered any answers, you know, in terms of why the world is the way that it is. You know, it just gives you this interesting little look into, you know, their lives, just as things seemingly are about to change for them.
Like, being a big reader of vampire fiction that I know you are, did you enjoy this? Like, do you think it kind of...
I did.
I know it's early days, but did it hold up?
Yeah, I did really like it. And I did bring up some interesting kind of questions, like, you know, because obviously, you know, you get all sorts of different types of, you know, takes on vampires in different lore. But one thing that I did think was interesting is that they still all behave like children. You know, whereas, like, you know, you read Interview with the Vampire, and like Claudia's whole arc is about the fact that she, you know, becomes a woman trapped inside the body of a child. These they still behave very much like children. You know, they still play games and tag and catch the flag, and you know, they don't seem to have, you know, matured to be old souls trapped in young bodies.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. But I guess if you're living in an environment where there's no one to show you how to be an adult, that sort of emotional retardation might happen, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, then that might be a kind of natural byproduct of that. So I think at some point, I don't know if what you do have in this book, despite the fact that not a lot is happening, there is a slow forward momentum, and I wonder if Lemire 9 will keep that going, or they're gonna kind of start dipping into the past of it all. I'd be interested to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely kind of on for the next 5. I think it's only going to be 6 books,
right.
6 issues in the first instance. I could be wrong, but definitely. And it is a gorgeous book. In places, it reminded me of Akira, where you have all this great wreckage. It's a much more interior book than Akira, though, I have to say. Like, it's a much smaller scale. But yeah, really kind of reminded me of Akira. And he kind of gets in the gothic nature of some of it. There's like shots of almost where parts of nature have started to reclaim the buildings, and there are trees growing out of them and things. And I think there's some really interesting stuff. Hats off also to the letter of Steve Wands, who does some really great stuff in this. And I really enjoyed the lettering. And they keep you between the 3 of them. They keep you orientated as to who is who,
right,
and what they were doing.
Yeah, with a large cast, it's actually I thought that was very well done, because they they really give you an idea of who each of these characters are, in a very spare but very effective way.
I really enjoyed it. I don't know if there's the thing I'm curious about, the little octopus that gets pulled out of the bag. Is that a toy that you can buy in the US? No, it is, right. Because one of these is also the key to Something is Killing the Children.
Okay.
In a much more different way. Right. So I was wondering if it was like a kind of little
reference,
sort of inside baseball nod to Something is Killing the Children, but I guess not. But anyway, that's Little Monsters #1. That is the cover B. I don't know if you've got the cover B.
I've got the A cover.
Let's have a look at that. That's a great cover.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So yours is by Nyan, mine is by Lemire. So that's from Image Comics, and that's available now. What would you like to talk about next, Liz?
Let's talk about Captain Carter.
Yeah, sure. Now, this is my turn to be ashamed this week, because I didn't get through this book in its entirety. Sorry, I ran out of time before we had to start the pod. So Liz is kind of going to lead us through this one.
Sure.
Sorry, Liz. No pressure. No pressure.
That's fine. No
so can I just run through the credits quickly? Jamie McKelvey, not drawing this time, he's writing. Marika Cresta is the artist, and Eric Arseniga is the color artist, with VC's Clayton Cowles being the letterer for this. So Captain Carter springing out of
What If?
Whatever that show was, yeah.
Whatever that show was, come on. Oh my God,
Liz, I wish I had. Do you know what? Post pandemic, I do not have the hard drive space to remember what these things are called.
Jeez,
there's only been one show on Disney Plus for me in the last couple of weeks, and that's Pam and Tommy, and I've been loving that.
That's on Disney Plus.
It is here, yeah, on Star.
What? Oh my God! Wow.
The Star's the adult arm of Disney Plus.
Right.
I did not.
Yeah, because for me it's on Hulu, and I am watching it, and it is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not watching. I have not watched What If. I'm sorry.
You didn't watch What If?
No, I just haven't.
Oh my God! Are you kidding?
Liz.
Oh my God.
How much time do you think I've got?
I think you need to make time.
I don't have.
It's
okay,
I will, but before we watch, okay, no, hey, shh. Before Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness comes out, you need to watch What If, because it's actually super important.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's like all these things. It's very, very important.
Well,
but,
it is.
Ultimately, I do have a life too. Liz, take us through Captain Carter. Talk to me about this book.
Okay, all right. So
does this pick up from the end of the What If series?
It's basically, I mean, yeah, right. The first episode of What If was the Captain Carter episode, sure. Which set a really high bar for that series because it was a great episode. I think everybody kind of loved it, and everybody really embraced this incarnation of Peggy Carter as the one to get the serum instead of Steve. Right. Things, in whatever branch of the multiverse this takes place, the machine that Steve was meant to get into, at the last minute there was no choice, he wasn't able to get into it, and she sort of dove in and took the serum instead, because that was there was no one else who would do it. So you wind up with Peggy Carter, as the Captain America type, as the super soldier.
Yeah.
And the way they played it, and her relationship with Steve, who remained a big part of the story, even though he never got the serum, he stayed like skinny little Steve. It was really sweet and really wonderful. And great episode. I absolutely loved it. And I think everybody else did too. And so it doesn't surprise me that that this book is coming out now. I think everybody just kind of really embraced it, and I certainly was looking forward to this coming out, and I thought it was really cool that it's Jamie McKelvey on the writing duties, because as far as I know, this is like the first thing of his that I have read. I don't know if he has written anything else.
I'm not sure he has, because I think he
I mean, I'm super familiar with his work as an artist, particularly all his stuff with Kieran Gillen, which I really love. Wicked and Divine, Young Avengers, Phonogram, all that stuff. I love when they work together. I love his art.
And he did, I believe he did the cover here, right?
Yeah.
That's his work on the
cover, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I really like McKelvey's art. Even I keep seeing it on things I haven't read, but obviously you see him on the shelf. Wicked and Divine, I need to go back and kind of engage with again, I think, because that was a book I didn't kind of latch onto the first time around, and then I reread it a bit later, or reread the first volume or so a bit later, and was like, oh, actually, no, I really enjoy this now, but I need to go back. I think I've got the first 3 volumes somewhere. So, and I know it kind of tops out at 9 volumes, so I'm going to give that a go. And of course, our good friend Julia Madrigal worked on the Wicked and Divine comedy special. She did like a story in that, I believe.
Yeah.
So all the more reason really to go back and look at it.
But here he is not on the art. Here he is writing, and as I said, as far as I know, this is probably his first big writing gig, and I really was very impressed. I thought he did a great job setting up the story, basically from the point where this version of Peggy mirrors what happened with Steve by being discovered under the ice, and then being reintegrated into the world so many years after she had sacrificed herself seemingly to save the world.
I have read some of the book. I want to be clear. I have read some of the book. So I read like the first half. I found that half really interesting because there's a scene in there where different countries basically try and lay claim to Peggy Carter
as the super soldier serum. They're talking about her as though she is a super soldier serum weapon or sample to study rather than a person who's standing in front of them.
Exactly. And there's an interesting thing there about, the way people see women in society. I really kind of liked that. I thought that was quite nicely done. and she answers that problem very decisively.
Yes.
But of course, as she goes back to England, finding out that the British kind of exactly want to kind of do the same thing, right? I mean,
Right.
kind of, she becomes a PR exercise,
right.
which
happened to Steve in of course, and he, basically they wanted to put him in a suit and have him, be the dancing monkey as he sort of, feels in the first Cap film. He becomes very disenchanted with the way he's being sort of trotted out just to be a symbol, rather than make any meaningful change.
Sure.
And it seems like, that's kind of what they want to be doing with Peggy, although they do actually say, well, we do actually want you out there fighting as well, because, because the Yanks have all the superheroes. So, they're like, well, now we've got, our own. And, they're all the prime minister, who she has a meeting with, just expects her to, just fall in line and do what he says.
Yeah.
And she's not so sure that that's what she wants to do.
Yeah, it must be. It's a weird thing to be a weapon effectively and choose not to fight. I mean, that's I always find that quite an interesting thing in fiction and things like that. I think it's a well trod but meaningful and interesting kind of trope, if you like.
Sure.
So I'm really curious to see what they. Although I mean, we see her in action by the end of the book, right? I mean,
we do, and but it kind of it tells you a little bit about who Peggy is. That she will fight to defend other people and do what's right, but she doesn't just want to go out there and be a mascot for her country. She wants to, she only is willing to fight to defend others. Which is, that's very much the spirit of her character. It's very much the spirit of Steve's character as well, who she parallels. So
I'm just bringing my camera down a bit there.
So yeah, I thought it was a really, really great little first issue. I really enjoyed it a lot. And it was interesting to kind of see the little differences between this universe, which I'm not exactly sure what branch it is meant to be set on, but right. and the mainstream Marvel universe, the 616. There's a couple of cameos from at least one identifiable character who is introduced to her as Lizzie Braddock, but of course we're talking about Betsy Braddock, Psylocke. So I was, again, another sort of British hero, so I think what they're going for here is kind of a, like a very UK set book far, which I like, because there's not actually a ton of those, when it comes to superheroes, as they kind of point out. It's like, oh, well, they all seem to be, based in America. So I like that they're distinguishing this book by setting it in London and,
and of course there is
her by a UK cast of characters.
Yeah. And there is this kind of refrain from Marvel fans and MCU fans to get Captain Britain into the MCU,
right.
which kind of pops up every few months. And is something I'm kind of interested in, especially now that we're seeing kind of the resurgence of Alan Moore's Marvel Man, Miracle Man universe, which sort of ties just a little bit in with the Captain Britain stuff he did, although only slightly, as I understand. So I'm kind of curious to see if they'll off the back of that they'll start to move into a kind of, hey, I mean, maybe we'll see Miracle Man. Who knows? On screen. I think that is the plan.
I mean, they've talked about that for years, so we'll see.
I mean, overall, do you think you'll stick with this for the run?
I don't know if is it a mini? Is it? I actually don't know.
I think it's a mini.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm invested. Like, I said, I think that we're going to start seeing more of the what if stuff, sort of trickle into the comics. Particularly, when you see that so much of it is going to be the basis for Multiverse of Madness. It's now seems kind of inevitable that they're going to take stuff from the what if episodes and weave it into comics as well. So I do recommend this book, and I definitely will be following it.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to give it a go after we sort of hang up the pod and try and finish the issue. Sorry about that, guys. It's not. Please don't take it personally. It's not a matter of. It really is just a timing thing. There's always, I think, one of us always misses out on one book every week, right? I mean, there's always
a lot of times, but that's fine. That's fine,
Because the way it works, we propose a bunch of titles to each other, usually first issues, and we leave it up to the other person to pick what books they're gonna actually read, and we kind of wait till just before we start to say, okay, well, I read this. What did you read?
Right.
Just to kind of keep it interesting for ourselves, really.
Yeah.
It just happens to be the week when Liz has read all the books.
I did, and I think part of that is because I was particularly excited for a couple of them.
Right.
And then the others were all like easy reads, like, in terms of like, sometimes, we'll cover a book or try to cover a book, and it will just be so dense that, it's like, oh my God, I'm not going to get this read in time. So, sometimes that is a factor for me. Whereas I think all the books this week really weren't like that. I think they were all pretty, pretty decompressed and easy to kind of breeze through, Now,
one book I know you were excited for.
Okay, this is the book that I have been very excited for. Yeah.
Was The Punisher, #1. So this is written by Jason Aaron, with art by Jesus and Paul Azaceta, with colours by Dave Stewart and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. Now, I was curious about this. I occasionally dip into The Punisher, mainly with Garth Ennis's run. I have to say, it's kind of, do I want to read a Punisher book that's not written by Garth Ennis? I don't know. I really enjoyed, I can't remember what it was called, but the kind of one that sort of, it's set in America, but it's about a Russian kind of version of the Punisher that comes over, basically trying to get revenge on this sort of Russian general. I'm annoyed I can't remember what it was called, because I reviewed it at length and I loved it. That was written by Garth Ennis. That was the last Punisher thing I remember reading.
I mean, he wrote The Punisher for years. Yeah, I think his run goes for like 60 plus issues. And
then there's a couple of minis, but I don't think he's done
minis. There's like no. I mean, he did even just a couple of years ago. He did Punisher the Platoon. He dips in every once in a while. He I think it's a character that I know he loves, and he revisits. So I too am a massive fan of the Garth Ennis Punisher series. That is, I think just kind of the gold standard in terms of Punisher stories for me. However, the series that I absolutely adored and was completely blown away by. I loved Frankencastle. Frankencastle's awesome, dude. Love Frankencastle.
Punisher meets Archie.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed that very much as well. Thank you. Love Punisher meets Archie. But I want to finish what I was going to say.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
So the series that I absolutely loved. That came out. I can't even remember, maybe 5-10 years ago, somewhere in that area. That is meant to be written to be kind of a cap off to Garth Ennis's Punisher series. Is the Jason Aaron run?
Yeah.
In which Punisher is basically, this broken down old man. He's kind of, on his last legs, but he's just going to keep fighting until he can't keep fighting. And it is absolutely brilliant. It's drawn by Steve Dillon.
Is that the one where they introduce the Kingpin?
Introduce the Kingpin. It's one of the best Kingpin stories I've ever read. It's a really interesting twist on the origin of the Kingpin. Yeah, it's all Daredevil villains. So you've got like Bullseye, Elektra, Kingpin. Those are like his rogues gallery in this story, and it is like amazing. It's so good. And I absolutely loved it. Would recommend it. As highly as possible. And that is what made me so excited for this week's issue, is that this is Jason Aaron returning to writing the Punisher for the first time in many years.
Before we start, can I just give people a quick, in case they're not familiar with what's going on here, because when I first read about this, I was like, huh? Like what? So I'm just going to give people a quick synopsis. So, born a tragedy, devoted to war, unstoppable in his rage, as the Punisher, Frank Castle has become the most accomplished killer the world has ever seen. Now it's time for him to face his true destiny. What shocking secret from Frank's past will convince him to take the reins of the Marvel Universe's most notorious clan of assassins? And once Frank becomes the deadly warlord of the ninjas of the Hand, will it also mean the end for the Punisher, or a whole new bloody beginning? So Frank Castle is now working for, or almost leading the Hand, basically, which I found to be a really interesting turn of events. It's a very strange place for Frank to find himself in, the High Slayer of the Hand, because it's unlike him to be drawn back into a large organization, because he served
the Punisher he's not, that's true, he served in the military, but as the Punisher, he is a loner.
And he's screwed over a few times by the military, which was the subject of a few of the arcs in Ennis's run. And given that the military was, or as he lived it, was a kind of corrupt organization that took him into phony wars. It's interesting to find himself working for the Hand, although as an organization, the Hand is evil, but not like, it's quite pure in its evil. I find in the stuff I've read, the very few things I've read, in that they have a goal, and that goal is always bad, but that's just what they do. Whereas I think with the, things like the military, it presents itself to be an organization that will do good, but is in fact a kind of organization that does terrible things, So I found that quite interesting. Liz, sorry, please go talk to me about this some more. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's all stuff that I would have touched upon, like, for sure. The fact that, Frank has found himself in this completely different scenario. And it's, it was quite shocking to me, because I went in spoiler free. I've been super excited about this since I saw it solicited in previews. I didn't, I knew very little about what was going to happen. And it was like, I was deeply surprised when, for starters, he goes to face these, I think they were called the Apostles of War. It's these guys, these bad guys who have been stockpiling, like the world's most dangerous weapons. But with this sort of religious seeming like, tint to their outlook. And so our opening scene is him facing off against them. Well, okay, not our opening scene, because I actually thought the opening scene, in fact, was quite important. It's another look at the death of his family, but from his perspective, in just the most sort of brutally effective way possible.
Yeah, like that was horrible. But in a good way. Do you know what I mean?
It was really well done. Like the vantage point, for them to have accomplished that, sort of in a comic, I thought was really impressive.
I just kind of want to ask you: do you think that was the section that's drawn by Paul Azaceta?
Yeah, it's a very different style, I think, to the rest.
And I do also love that glorious kind of montage they've got on the sort of 2 pages following that, where you see the Punisher of different eras.
I love that.
Drawn by hundreds of different, not hundreds, but loads of different artists. And that's a great kind of recap in itself. So the issue that the arc is called the King of Killers, Punisher the King of Killers, and this is the Blessings of War. This issue. These guys, I mean, I can't tell. They all look like they're following some kind of god, but are not. But like they wear these kind of military gladiatorial helmets. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And we're in Greece,
right?
So that was kind of an interesting opening scene. Now, I thought moving out of Max into this kind of standard Marvel environment, there is a strong parental guidance warning on the solicits for this book.
But it's not a Max book, and I was surprised that it's not a Max book, especially after having read it.
Yeah, it doesn't skimp on the violence. And as I said, Jesus says is the Jesus says, sorry, is the artist for the biggest portion of the book.
Yeah.
His art kind of reminds me a little of John Cassaday.
Extremely. When I saw that cover, I was like, oh, that's John Cassaday. It's not. It is actually the series artist. I too really saw, Cassaday sort of influence in his work, which is a high compliment in my eyes, because I love John Cassaday. And I think, this definitely, his style is very evocative of Cassaday's work, but certainly, he's got his own flair as well.
Can I just mention a couple of things I picked up on in the book? I just want to get your thoughts on. I mean, the hands seem to be readying Frank for some sort of transformation, whether or not that's going to be a literal transformation or something else. But they it's almost like they want him to become either some other form or the vessel for the beasts that they all worship. And that transformation has already begun, because when you look at his garments, you've got this new symbol that the skull of the man is gone, and it's been replaced by this sort of skull of the demon or a demon. It's almost like they want Frank to be a conduit for that power.
Yes. There is now, okay, obviously I think there are real world reasons why they have, tried to change the logo, which anybody, I think that they have been even tiptoeing around the use of the Punisher at all in recent years. There hasn't been like a Punisher ongoing for a while. There hasn't been even a mini series for a while. You haven't seen him pop up much anywhere. I think it's, part of this has to do with, apparently like some subset of people have sort of commandeered the logo to mean something else. And, I think that perhaps that has made Marvel nervous to use the logo. And also the other thing is that primarily throughout this issue, we don't see Frank use a gun.
No, he is adopting the Hand's methods of swords and martial arts and things.
Right.
Which again is a strange move for Frank, because given
I
his
think,
size, he is a brawler,
Right. Again, I think it may have to do with their sort of worries about real world parallels,
I think that what is going to happen, personally, with as far as that goes, is that this symbol will be seen for a while, and then he's going to reclaim the skull. They'll try and reassert what that skull is for and what it means.
Right.
See, I've always taken the skull. I mean, apart from the fact that, yes, it looks badass and all that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I've always taken it as kind of, that's Frank.
Yeah.
He's the hollowed out man now. He's just a shell, of which there is no soul and spirit attached to. He's become this animated form that is just about destruction.
Yeah.
So I kind of take it out, and it's interesting that another reason why it's interesting that he's working with the Hand, or has become part of the Hand, is that the Hand are a supernatural force almost. And there's always been something supernatural about Frank, slightly. It's not just the fact that he survived so much violence. But if you go back to the Garth Ennis book In the Beginning, I don't know, do you remember that? The one where he's in Vietnam?
Yeah.
So that one.
So that
and the point of the skull is hammered home on the front cover of that book.
I think you're talking about Born, right?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Born. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. But if you go back to that, and in that, there's a voice that Frank hears every now and then, and it's kind of that voice, whether it's a form of psychological breakdown or something happening, it allows him to survive, but it tells him that it's coming for his wife and child as a kind of price for that. So there's always been this, and it's never really stated, but I don't think you can go through what he's kind of gone through without something being there. I mean, I don't know, and I don't necessarily need a supernatural connection to what Frank Castle does.
No,
I don't want one,
because I feel like he is one of the most grounded and realistic characters in a sense. Because they really never have tried to do anything particularly well. I say they haven't. There was Frank Castle, which was great.
Yeah.
But
I'll take your word for it.
It's very much like, kind of real world street crime.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Hand, as part of his sort of transformation that they seem to be setting him up for, are kind of taking him back to who he was even before the death of his wife and children, because the High Priestess of the Hand refers to him in one scene in the book as Francisco Castiglione, which is his Italian-American name, which is the name he drops when he goes to Vietnam.
Right.
And I think he does that quite specifically because isn't it attached to some sort of, it's attached to like a mafia family, or he's committed a crime in, I think, part of one of the early Punisher books, which I think was the Tiger, not the early, but it was an early set Ennis book called the Tiger, is that he's murdered someone and he's kind of had to drop that name because people know that he murdered someone. And it's interesting that she takes him back to that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really liked, and it's what I like about this is that it's a really different Punisher story to any that I've read, and yet it really feels true to the character. Despite that, I would never have sort of conjectured that, Frank Castle should lead the Hand. That, would never have made sense to me, except in the context of what they do here, particularly when you get to this amazing twist ending, which I won't spoil for anyone, because I think absolutely, you've got to read this issue. If you're, even a casual Punisher fan or have any casual interest in becoming one, I thought this was such a cool
direction to take this book in, and one that really
there,
surprised me.
There is something I've got to mention about the hand. I'm not sure if I can say it because
it gives stuff away. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They are famous for being able to do.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Yeah, don't say it.
But my question is to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are witnessing the second life of Frank Castle? Like, do you think that there's a possibility that Frank Castle has died at some point in preceding this story?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Like, that's, certainly, so we haven't really, but I'm like kind of strapped in for the ride, waiting to find out, because
I genuinely didn't expect to be, because it was just like, oh, someone other than this is writing this. No.
Oh God, you got to read his Punisher Max series.
Oh, I did.
It's amazing.
I did.
I absolutely
read
adored it. Yeah.
The Aaron one. Yeah. I absolutely did read it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time it was the bit of that stretch of Punisher books that I hadn't read. And I think I was rereading them at the time we were doing like one of the Punisher shows on TV.
Yeah.
So we were kind of talking about that. I don't think we're going to have time to get to Hit Me, sadly.
No, it's unfortunately.
I do want to mention this because I'm just going to fly through it very quickly, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll just fly through it in a couple of minutes. So this is by Krista Faust, Priscilla Petrates, I hope I've said that correctly, and Marco Lesko. So it is a book set in the BDSM world, the sort of sex worker world. Letters by And World Design. Sorry, I should say that. And it's about a character who literally has men pay her to beat her up, effectively. And I didn't know. I did not know what this book was about going in.
No, neither did I.
And it's fascinating to see a book, and it kind of morphs into a crime story from there. I love crime stories. It's really fascinating to see a book set in this world. And as Krista Faust points out in her sort of afterword to the first issue, it's not a book that treats sex workers as lost angels or,
victims,
sadly, or lost girls or victims. No, this is someone who's very much in control of her life. And whose life starts to spiral out of control because of an event that's not directly related to her, but because of something that occurs with one of her clients. I don't want to say too much about this because I just haven't, unfortunately, gone through. Like we don't have time to really hit to it, and I think this book probably deserves a bit more of a kind of lengthy dissection, if you want. I mean,
right, sure.
So it is a world that some of you might find uncomfortable.
Right.
I was certainly kind of not taken aback, but I was surprised by it. I think it's definitely worth looking at. So it's from AWA, Hit Me. I think it's definitely worth looking at. And also it might kind of reappraise some people's attitudes or cause people to reappraise some of their attitudes towards kind of sex work and sex workers, which is kind of an ongoing issue of focus, because things are changing and things do need to change, but it is something that does need looking at. I don't want to say too much. I am going to try and write about this book, I think, for the site. Look out for that hopefully in the next week or so if I get to it. But yeah, I'm sorry to the creators on that team. We did not get to it. We spent a long time. I spent a long time babbling tonight, so unfortunately, sorry, Liz.
And Krista Faust is an author that I actually am familiar with, as a novelist. Way back in the 90s. She wrote a book called Control Freak, which is also kind of centered in that scene. That's like a horror book, but but set within the 90s BDSM scene. That I did read and really like. I was reading a lot of like, of kind of horror books, set in like kind of, alternative, subcultures and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
And she was kind of that part of that same scene in like, as like Poppy Z. Bright and Caitlin Kiernan and writers that I really liked. So when I saw it was her writing this, I was like, oh, cool. I know that I like her as a writer. So. I'll be interested to read your review.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how much I can really say, because not being a person that indulges in that world in my personal life, I'm not sure how much I can kind of go, oh, here's an expert view. You know what I mean? Like, it's just however, I'm interested to see her view. So I think I'm gonna get the next issue and see where it goes. Yeah, I don't know how much I can really say about it, but it caught me off guard, and I'm glad it did that. And it's definitely a kind of, I think it's a safe, quote unquote, safe way for people like us to kind of dip into worlds, as all fiction is. It is a quote unquote safe way to dip into worlds that you otherwise might not kind of, indulge in or be part of. So anyway, just to wrap up tonight, we are doing another podcast, not straight after this, but kind of almost straight after this. So you can literally, so this will be going out quite soon. Hopefully you'll be able to then go straight into our Batman podcast, which is all about the new movie. We're going to be joined by Rob, Deb, and Nikki is coming back to kind of do her first show in a while with us. And of course, my faithful companion here will be joining us.
But of course, resist a chance to talk about Batman. Never.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really curious to see what you guys thought of this. Staying in movies and TV. The Obi-Wan trailer is out. Liz, have you had a chance to look at that yet?
I have. I'm very excited. It looks great.
I was reading about that sort of the kind of Mandalorian Tatooine set universe that seems to be kind of springing out Star Wars. It does seem to me to be a world that has had its fingers burnt trying to move into the future. It's therefore, as quickly as it can, retreating into the past. But it's interesting how they're kind of pulling in all the other kind of mediums they've gone into, like video games and, of course, the movies, even the less loved movies like the prequel trilogy. They're now kind of making that acceptable, which I
think that's very clever. I think it's very clever that they're mining characters and ideas and things from those films. And I think that it really kind of it legitimizes those films in a way, by obviously, trying not to pretend they never existed. But also there was neat stuff in there. There were cool ideas in there, even if some of the movies, like for me, weren't like the most fun to actually watch. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on in them that's definitely worth revisiting.
And I think it's interesting how it's managed to keep its grounding in samurai movies and westerns, but then start to push into other genres like the crime movie, the spy movie, So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Do check that out. I'm going to try and get that up on the site. Sorry, I've been a bit busy and preoccupied, so I haven't had time to do that. But I'll try and get it up and get a link into this for you guys. And then I do just have to briefly say that Deadpool 3 has found its director, which is Sean Levy, who I believe has directed Ryan Reynolds before in Free Guy and most recently The Adam Project, which is now on Netflix. I'm interested to see what this does under the Disney label.
Right. Well, hey, I am just super excited to see that they are actually proceeding with another Deadpool film, because I loved the other two, and it's actually been a good couple of years now since we saw Deadpool 2. So like just the fact that the ball is finally rolling on a new Deadpool film, I'm very excited for. So that's great.
I actually really want to watch the Adam Project, because I haven't looked at the trailers. I think it looks like my particular brand of vodka, so I'm gonna give that a go. Guys, I want to thank you all for watching and listening. Liz, thank you so much for giving up your time again this week to come and do the show. It's always a pleasure to have your knowledge and enthusiasm on. Thank you for coming on, and I'll see you in about 40 minutes for the Batman show.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, you can pick up any of these fine 4-color periodicals at your local comic book shop. Any of the comics we've discussed, you should be able to find on the shelves at That's Entertainment in Worcester, Massachusetts.
And Gush Comics in London.
And all other fine comic book shops.
And Liz, so I heard a rumor this week that you did another show. You did a podcast with somebody else. How dare you?
I can only confirm that is the case.
What show did you do?
I appeared on an episode number 502 of Trick or Treat Radio, which is some guys based in my area who do a really fun long form show where they discuss horror films largely, but also just pop culture, comics, and just all that good stuff that I enjoy as well, Cool. And so we had a really fun time discussing the movie Fresh, which is starring Sebastian Stan. So of course I was already sold. I was like, well, okay, anything with Bucky in it,
a double dose of Sebastian Stan this week then, because surely
with Pam and Tommy as well. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and I absolutely recommend their show. They're really cool guys. They very knowledgeable, and very funny. So do check out their show, Trick or Treat Radio. It's they've got a website, I believe is trickortreatradio.com. I can double check that. But
I'll try and put some links.
You can put a link in the description box. Yeah,
so you can
and their show's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. But do check them out. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can get even more Liz for your buck this week. I'm sure you're all thrilled with that.
But we've gone over.
I love it when I can palm her off on someone else personally. No, I'm kidding. I don't. I'm just kidding. I am thrilled that you did. Like you went out and did another podcast though. Like,
it was fun. It was fun, absolutely. But we have gone well over our mark.
Sorry about that, guys.
Point, so.
I mean, what am I sorry? Like you're getting good stuff, right? I mean, come on. So, Liz, thank you. We're getting out of here now. We'll catch you next.